This week on Corinne's Picks, we have Don Perilis. Welcome to Corinne's Picks. This is the 4th episode of a series of interviews with Don Perilis. Welcome, Don Perilis.
Thank you.
Today we're going to be exploring a series of paintings that were done on the Central Park 5 incident that occurred in 1989. These paintings are particularly relevant today because there's been a series of prominent films about the Central Park 5. We have the Ava DuVernay documentary called How They See Us. We have the Ken Burns documentary. And we also have an interview program with Oprah Winfrey. And it's just been a high profile story for a couple of weeks. And, you know, seeing that you did this very powerful series on the issue, I thought that would be a great series to show the audience. So if you could just give us a little bit of background. We're going to go to the images, but if you could just give us a little bit of background.
Well, ironically, actually, I had started on this series right at the end of most of the other works that we talked about, which also were dealing with very disturbing incidents. And by the time I got to this, I was pretty exhausted. And I wanted to explore it, make a major painting, because it felt like a major, like seminal kind of an incident that was really going to be, and I'm not surprised that it's turned out to be one, although the what's happened around it has been astounding, in that they were innocent. Nobody knew it at the time. When I did the series, what you're going to be seeing are actually preparation sketches and paintings that I made for the series, and I actually never did make a final, large, worked-out painting of it. Although I was exploring many different compositions, but the closest I got to it was the work that's actually behind us. Which is a correct scale. I mean, it's quite a large work. And
what is this? What is the size of the painting behind us?
You know, I don't recall if it's either 5 or 6 feet high, but it's quite a large picture. And I was actually going to develop this work into a finished full color painting, and I was so disturbed and exhausted by the whole, not just by the series of works that around this incident, but about the works that I had done previously, because I had given myself a program to document, but make art out of these incidents that were occurring that were shaking the whole country, and this would have been the final one, but I was so upset by it that I just gave up, actually, after I made the drawing. I also thought the drawing, because it was gray and black and white, I thought it had a kind of an austere power that and it was okay to leave it at the state that it's in. And I don't regret it. I mean, the woman would have been wearing an orange jogging suit, actually, if I had, and it would have turned into probably a beautiful colored painting, but you know, the black and white has an austerity and a kind of gravity that I don't regret leaving it in this stage, actually.
So in preparation for this show, I did look at Oprah Winfrey's exploration of the documentary, I guess the film, How They See Us with Ava DuVernay.
Yeah.
And, you know, she had the actors and the actual, I guess, boys that were sent to jail, not boys, now men that were sent to jail. Let me just say the names that Corey Wise, Yosef Salam, Kevin Richardson, Raymond Santana, and Anton McRae. From that episode, I now know that they're not referring to them anymore as the Central Park Five, because that was part of the problem in terms of characterizing these boys as hoodlums. Now they're being referred to as the Exonerated Five.
Oh,
So,
right. Yeah.
right. So I think the painting behind us is very striking because it really captures the way the city felt about these boys at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, innocent boys were sent to jail, but if you look at the size and the facial expressions and the fierceness and the way they're grabbing the woman, that's what the city. That's the paint. That's basically what was painted by the media.
Yeah, yeah.
Literally, on
Yeah.
these teenagers.
It's scary because we the way we accept what's given as a fact, we're all kind of victim to it, I would say. I mean, I certainly believe that these kids were. I remember some of the way it was referred to, like raising or something like that, or
Wilding.
Wilding. I remember
right.
that. I remember it vividly,
Right.
and because that puts up a kind of an image of wolves roaming around. I mean, it was wild. The media propaganda, the way these kids got jumped on. They were just children, really, and I believed that it happened, just like most people who read about it. I mean, basically there was no option the way it was described and the way it was presented by. I mean, they were tried in the press.
They were tried in the press.
Yeah.
Donald Trump, who's now our president, then he wasn't our president, but he had a full-page ad, basically viciously, basically throwing the book at these, trying them in the newspaper. Nobody had known that, basically nobody focused on the fact that there was no DNA evidence, and nobody really knew that these confessions were actually coerced, because these were children.
Was there DNA at that time?
There was no DNA evidence.
No, there was no DNA at that time.
Later on, after these children had served so many years in prison, the actual perpetrator of this rape and sodomy was actually Matthias Reyes, and he came forward. But even after he came forward, one of the Exonerated Five actually remained in jail for quite a while.
How come they couldn't get him out? It's very
I'm not sure, but I mean,
very strange.
if you I really invite our viewers, if anybody hasn't seen either the Ken Burns or Duvernay or Oprah's depiction of this issue, I definitely invite the audience to definitely take a look, because it's really heartbreaking. And when they see your paintings, it does give one pause, because that is how we saw these children. So let's go to some of the.
If I could say one thing before we leave this particular work, this might be interesting to people, because it's the painting that they're looking at is actually a preparation for a large painting,
right?
And it's the first stage of what I would do, or the way I was working at the time. And what I would do right after this is go into paint, and develop it in black and white, and then I would put color over that. So what they're seeing is the first stage of what would have been a large painting. I just wanted to clarify that. Yeah.
Maybe some of the viewers might not have seen the first 3 episodes.
Oh, yeah.
With this. So if you could, while you're describing these, I forgot what you call them. You call them
the studies. Studies, yeah.
While you're describing them, you can also give them a little bit of your philosophy on Renaissance art and why you paint the way you paint.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay, can we have the first image, please?
Yeah, this is a study for the same subject, and it's I made I tried this composition out a couple of different times, and this is one of them. I believe this is the smaller one, and this would be the first step before I enlarge something. Also, I only have 4 of the kids in there too. I think in this in this particular work. And what I would do after making something, it's probably about this big, and there's also a work on paper that's about this big that has a similar composition.
How did you stage this? Is this from
Yeah.
your head?
Oh, no,
or
yes, no, it's completely made up out of my mind.
So
you know,
this is
yeah.
not with models yet?
No, not at all.
So
No. I was trying to envision the. In fact, in this particular sketch, I hadn't even worked out the foreground and the background. I was just trying to get the juxtaposition of the psychological and the physical juxtaposition of the figures.
So you envisioned them as being big and strong. They all seem tall and brawly.
Yeah. Well, when a kid gets if I'm trying to make a painting of this kind of subject. To get the full emotional impact of it, you kind of have to exaggerate the size of the victim and the size of the perpetrators, or the size of the alleged perpetrators, as they would say now. But but it's a small study. I mean, it's like, I think, this particular one actually, and it's also quite a little darker than I believe the screen is showing. But that's not your fault. I think it's because they're very hard to photograph, because they're very moody paintings, because they were done at night, and that's the reason that that color is in the back.
Okay.
But it's actually in a darker key in the actual study.
Okay.
So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can I have another one, please?
Yeah. Well, this is the same composition. But this is actually the painting that was done on paper, and it's got a little bit more of the city in it, and I believe I still only have 4 of the kids in there. Yeah, actually.
Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, I have 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I do. Yeah.
You have the white sneaker.
Yeah. So yeah, and this was the one I believe done on paper, and it's about this big, I think. And it's also a little lighter than the actual painting.
So they had told you that they had something in their hands and they were beating her with something?
Well, no, I actually was trying to brutalize the whole scene and make it worse. In fact, when I'm making these things, it's actually the less I know about it, the better, because I could let my imagination stretch, and the exact facts emotionally don't really matter. I mean, what matters is the brutality and the and the rapaciousness of the whole thing. I mean, so
but I think
it's liberty. I take liberties. Yeah.
What you're saying is mirroring what was going on in the city at the time. Everybody, you were painting it on paper, but we were all painting it in our heads and making this stuff up.
Oh, I bet you everybody had their own idea.
And so did the jury, and the lawyers, and the district attorney. And
also, New Yorkers have a real memory of Central Park. I mean, because we've lived with it all our lives, and we were always a little bit scared of the park at night, and we always envisioned of going in there, how scary it would be. So it's the environment itself is like a haunted house.
I think the victim was from out of town, because Central Park had a reputation of being dangerous at night. Like, I would never have gone jogging at night. But somebody from out of town might not know that.
Yeah, I didn't realize that she was an out of towner, actually.
I believe she was from out of town. I think she was. I know she was like a stockbroker or something like that. Anyway, I think we have about only 1 minute left before we go to break.
Yeah.
So maybe we can look at one image, and you can quickly give a comment, and then we'll go to break.
Sure. Yeah. This was another compositional idea, and it was actually I thought would make a really interesting painting. I didn't do it because I thought the landscape format lent a quietude to the scene, and too much of one, actually. Even
who's the figure standing up?
Well, it's also one of the boys watching.
So
I made one kid watching, and then four doing, some dirty work.
Is that a rock under her head?
No, actually, he's standing on a ridge, and they're below the ridge. And I often do that because in paintings, because it makes the space go very fast. You kind of go down to go back, and It gives it a drama. So I often do that. But I considered this composition for quite a while, and then wound up doing the vertical one, actually. That's one reason why I chose the vertical one, because what we have seen so far was rejected because of the horizontal format, because I thought the vertical format was more appropriate, and I could zero in on the figures too, so yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go to a break. When we come back, we'll talk some more about the Exonerated Five paintings.
Okay.
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 Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding. Why did the girl ask the mushroom to dance? Because he was a fun guy. What do you call a pig that knows karate? Pork chop. So how does a tissue dance? Put a little boogie on it.
Welcome back. We were talking to Don Perilis. We're exploring his studies on the Central Park 5 incident. He did a series of studies for paintings. So I'm going to give it back to you, and we can continue talking about some of your studies.
Sure, of course.
Okay,
sure.
so can we get another image?
Oh yeah, this is yeah. This is actually the painting on paper. Right, this is the painting on paper, and it's darker. And
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I noticed that you were very careful not to show any nudity, and most of the paintings I've seen of yours, you're not shy about. Nudity.
No. I just couldn't go there. It was just too bloody awful, to try to visualize. I didn't want to go that far. I wanted the violence and the initial attack. It's horrifying enough without, because it gets pornographic. Actually, I think if I went there, that's what I felt at the time. It would be pornographic to do that. Not because she was nude. It's just that the vulgarity of the violence was pornographic.
Also to give her a little bit of dignity back.
Yeah. Could I see that study again? Is that possible? Oh, it's because it's gone. Oh, there it is. Yeah. One thing I wanted to say about this was that the way this study is actually structured, where it's closer up, and I liked it a lot, and I was really considering making a large painting of this because the boys look almost military in this. The way the rhythms of the painting are. You know, it's like they're almost like soldiers.
Well, you have his elbow up, like the elbow up, his fist in the air, like they're leaning into.
Yeah.
I mean, they're
well,
really.
There's a guy on the left is actually watching, and the other kids are attacking. And but yes, it's true. But I felt this was almost. They were almost like soldiers attacking a victim, and it was almost like military. So I really like this, but there was I wanted something more, a little more horrifying, and which is why I went to the drawing.
If you see her, you look at her body.
Yeah.
It is kind of horrifying because she's completely outmatched. I mean, she's like she's like
the hand
a
on her
rag
face.
doll, broken.
And the hand on her face, which is much more evident in this and not in the others, was really important for me. And it's right in the middle of the picture because it's forcing her down and kind of really breaking her, you know.
Also, I do have to go there in terms of the racial component. America has had a history of putting black men on trial for raping white women.
Yes.
And here's New York.
They didn't even have to rape them.
Right.
To get lynched.
Well, as in other
days,
cases, it was an accusation and sent people to jail.
Yeah,
and if this was in the South, they would have been hung. They would have been dragged.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They wouldn't even have to rape somebody.
Yeah,
they would just like made a comment.
Well, Emmett Till got strung up to got murdered and dumped in water attached to a wind. A water thing. And murdered. And he was the same age as these boys. And all he supposedly did was accusation of whistling.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Whistling.
That's what I was saying. It's like it's extraordinary, really. I think. I mean, what can anybody say about that kind of? It's hard to imagine. You know, it's like Auschwitz or something. You know.
Well, I mean, these are important paintings because you know how many years later, it's always almost you know, it's almost 30 years later, and then we have this evidence in your paintings.
Yeah.
Which is remarkable.
Yeah, the paintings look fresh too. Actually, I mean, they do. They bring it back.
I mean, there's no way that you would have known when you were painting these and doing these sessions that they were innocent.
No way at all. No way at all. Everybody in the papers, everybody who was in New York, they were convicted already. There was not even a doubt that was expressed in any of the media, I think, at the time. So, you know, it was kind of amazing that these things turned out. I mean, the paintings that I made turned out to be fiction.
Absolutely.
Some kind of a fiction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which is astounding to me, actually, because the other paintings that I've made of the other incidents were certainly not.
Absolutely.
So it's some kind of poetic justice that I never did this as a full color, large work in that regard. Actually.
Absolutely.
There's something ironic about it.
So can we look at another painting, please?
Yeah. Yeah, this is a darker version of the other small one, and more developed as well. Yeah, and it's also showing the darkness of the reproduction is actually accurate to the picture. So the verticals in there actually alleviate some of the horizontality too, and the guy who's looking really feels ominous with the tree behind him, and then the lamplight behind them. And in this painting, I mean, just from an artist's point of view, I've got a full space there. I mean, probably the only thing I could have done, and probably would have done if I had turned this into a large full painting, would put buildings in behind the trees, just to establish that it was the park.
Actually, for me, this one stands on its own as a painting. Like, for me, I really like this one in particular. This is, of the ones I've seen, this is very powerful for me because the figure that's standing seems so much higher than they all seem grovel, like they're attacking on the floor, like they're wolves, like I guess they call them a wolf pack.
Yeah.
Like they're almost like they're like, you depicted them like almost animals on the floor, and then you see the street lamp above. It's almost like they're so focused on what they're doing, they don't even notice the guy standing there.
And this so-called study is about 5 feet wide or 4 feet wide. It's a you know,
Wow.
it's a huge study.
Wow.
You know, yeah.
And this is really powerful.
And it was so
information.
disturbing to me after I did it that I didn't stretch it. I actually took it off. I took it off the stretchers and rolled it up, and it was rolled up for 20 years. I had 2 of these, and they were rolled up. It was so disturbing to me that I had rolled them up.
I actually think,
Yeah.
especially in this time period with so
Yeah.
much focus on this case, you know, I really hope that you would be open to actually exhibiting these paintings because it's an issue right now, exhibiting this to the
Yeah,
public.
yeah.
Particularly, I would love to see these exhibited in the Black community at Schomburg Library.
Oh, I would be delighted, actually. You
Because
know,
these are
that would be
really-
great. I would be delighted.
They make a really powerful statement about
Yeah.
that case
Yeah.
and what was done to these children.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's true, and I think people should see them, especially in light in light that they were innocent. They should see them. In fact, because it's an illustration of how our minds get bent by
Exactly.
by the media and how
Exactly. It says more about us. It says more about the society than the actual victims.
I mean, we're willing to believe that.
Exactly.
You know, actually, at the time, because they were just kids. Really.
Exactly.
And then, in fact, so really, yeah.
We have 3 minutes left. As in the case, every time I'm interviewing you, we do run out of time because your paintings are so fascinating.
Thank you. Yeah.
So let's see another one, and then we'll have to end the show, unfortunately.
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm glad you're pulling these up because these are this is the other large one, actually. That one and the one those, and this was also, I considered it a study, but like I said, it was
They're
fairly
like
large.
full. They're really like full paintings, actually.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. And this is similar, but you know, the action is more on the actual rape itself, and you know, the activity of it, the movement of it, and the fact that it's in pitch dark and these kids are lit up.
And look at the
Yeah.
sky.
Yeah.
I mean, it's heavy. It's really heavy.
Yeah. And that orange jumpsuit is kind of, you know, touching, really. It's kind of, the red in the middle, it's like blood, actually. And those things pass through your mind when you're working on something like this.
So,
yeah.
you know, I think we've come to I think this is the last image we're going to be able to talk about. I know that we basically, we have to keep having you come back, and we have to keep talking to you with your paintings. Thank you so much.
I'm very welcome.
I'm so grateful to you that you're willing to come to BronxNet and
It's a
tape with us.
please. Yeah, thank you.
It's a real honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your interest and support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.